Merry meet. Some say the heart chakra is the bridge between the material and the ethereal, as it separates the lower three chakras, which are all about the physical body, with the upper three chakras, which are all about the spiritual body. And so at the same time, the heart chakra is a place where we can expand our consciousness outward in all directions as we find unconditional love for all in the universe, including ourselves. So welcome. I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and I'm here tonight talking all about the heart chakra. So if you are here with me live, welcome. Leave questions and comments in the chat. I will answer those during the Q&A at the end. If you're watching this back on YouTube later, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Body, Mind, Witchcraft, and that way you will be sure to not miss any future episodes. And of course, if you like anything that you're hearing, leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the video, and that just makes sure that we get this out to more people. All right, so I'm just going to dive right in, give a little background on the heart chakra. So the heart chakra, its name in Sanskrit is Anahata, and it translates into a couple of different things. So in some translations, you'll see it translated as unstruck. In other translations, you'll see it translated to unhurt. And this implies that whatever happens to us means that we are never hurt. There's this essence that we have that transcends everything, all of our experiences, all of our traumas, all of our heartaches, all of our pain. It just simply transcends that. And ultimately, this is the goal of shadow work, is to find that transcendence, to be able to truly, it's one thing to be able to say that, but another thing to truly be able to believe it and embody it. And just imagine if we truly understood that we could never be hurt no matter what happened to us, we would be much freer in our lives, right? So that is the promise that comes with opening up the heart chakra. It's also the promise that comes with working with our shadow. Now, as I mentioned, the heart chakra is the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, many people will say. What it does is it separates the lower three chakras, which we will call the lower triangle most of the time. It separates those from the upper three chakras, which we often call the upper triangle. Now, in the lower triangle, we have the root chakra and we have the sacral chakra and the solar plexus. Now, our root is all about finding stability and security, really grounding down. It's really very much about the material and the physical body. The sacral chakra is about our creative energy, our ability to flow, our ability to tap into our emotions, especially within our own bodies. And the solar plexus is where we find our courage and our will and our self-esteem and our self-belief. Now, I've mentioned all of these in previous episodes. If you're interested in checking out about the root and the sacral chakra and the solar plexus, you can find more videos at our YouTube, Body, Mind, Witchcraft YouTube channel. But today we're going to be talking about the heart. Now, above the heart, we have the upper three chakras. This is where we start to get into more of the spiritual. We have the throat chakra that's responsible for our creative expression in the spiritual plane, as opposed to the more creative expression in the material plane that the sacral chakra is connected to. In the throat chakra, we also have our ability to speak our truth. As witches, we know that there's so much power in words and the spell work that we do. So this is where we vocalize, we vocalize those manifestations out to the universe. And then, of course, when we move up to the third eye, we're dealing with our intuition, and the crown is our connection out to the universe and to divinity. But here in the center lies the heart, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So the heart is the center of it all, the bridge between all of this. And because of this, the heart space needs to be free of blockages for the most part in order to ensure that we have good energy traveling from those lower three chakras up to the upper ones. Because if we have a lot of blockages in the heart, what it will do is it just kind of imagine a stream of water, and if we have some rocks that we kind of start building a dam, we wouldn't necessarily have to dam up all the water, but we could constrict the flow. And the energy of our body works in the same way. So when we have those blockages in this heart space, what it does is it simply constricts the flow of energy that's coming from the lower three chakras up into the upper ones. And what that means is that we may find that we're not able to tap as deeply into our spiritual potential as we want to. We're not able to tap as clearly into our intuition because we have these blockages in the heart. And the reality is that so many of us have them. So many of us have experienced grief, pain, trauma. Just think about this universe and think about particularly this planet, this world that we've chosen to come into in this incarnation. And I do believe we all choose where we incarnate and when we incarnate. So we all chose this, knowing that this world was a difficult one to come into. But because of that, we have to pay more attention to our heart. How can we relieve the burdens there? How can we make sure that that energy is flowing properly? And we're going to talk about that all in tonight's episode. Now, the heart chakra is very much connected to that idea of love, unconditional love, and it's very different than the sexual love of the sacral chakra. So, the sexual love of the sacral chakra is very physical. The love of the heart chakra is love that is not dependent on anyone else. It is love that radiates from within. It radiates from us when we realize that we are a product of the universe. Not only that, that we are the universe itself. We are connected to it, but we are also in it. So we are the universe of our own selves as well. Now, the heart chakra is something that when we really open up that consciousness, we begin to kind of live in that state of unconditional love. It begins to radiate outwards to all around us, to not just humans and animals around us, but also to all the energy of the plants, the planet. So one way that we work to heal the planet is simply by healing the heart, because we become more functioning. We are able to radiate that energy outwards as well, and instead of having it stuck and kind of constricted in us. Now, the heart chakra is like all the chakras, they're visualized as certain colors, and the heart chakra is visualized as green. Symbol is a 12-petal lotus that is surrounded by two intersecting triangles, so one points downward and one points upward. These two represent essentially those lower three chakras and the upper three chakras, and how they merge and they connect in the heart. It also creates a six-pointed star when you see that symbol together. Now, the basic issues of the heart are love. We talked a little bit about that. Love and self-love in particular, that's a hard one for many of us. So if we have trouble really loving ourselves unconditionally, then we absolutely immediately know that we're going to want to work with the heart, that we're going to have some issues with the heart. The heart is also about our intimacy. So are we able to connect with other people? That doesn't mean in romantic relationships necessarily. It means in any relationship, are we able to connect with others? The heart is also about the anima and the animus. So anyone who studies Jungian psychology would be aware of these words. The anima and the animus are simply the masculine and the feminine energies that are in the opposite genders. And it is important to take a moment to talk about that though this theory leaves room for kind of these two energies, masculine and feminine, it really doesn't have anything to do about gender. It's more about the way that these energies manifest. So masculine energy tends to be more projective, while feminine energy tends to be more receptive. And no matter what gender we are, no matter what gender we identify with, we have both of these energies in us, and they may be in different combinations. And they also will be in different combinations depending on what we're doing. So when we're in a state where we're very, very nurturing, then we're going to have more of that feminine energy within us. And when we're in a state where we're more doing and we're outward producing, we're going to have more of that masculine energy in us. But in the heart, this is where we find the balance between all of it. The heart chakra is also about our relationships. And the lesson or the work here, so every heart chakra or every chakra has some kind of a lesson, some kind of piece of work that we're doing. The lesson here is transcending the ego, allowing things to flow as they must. So the ego is not necessarily what we always think of in the Western world. So sometimes when we think about the ego, we think of people who are egocentric or ego-driven. We think of them as being like really selfish, perhaps, self-centered. The ego when we're talking about shadow work, or we're talking about it in this case, when we're talking about the heart chakra, is more about that connection to kind of this idea of the persona. So the persona is a mask that we wear, and it's very much ego driven. It's very much created by the ego. It's a mask that we wear to protect ourselves because we want to make sure that we're safe in situations. And when we were much younger, we began to build this mask by observing what seemed to be right and what seemed to be wrong in our own lives. So in our families, perhaps if we went to church, perhaps in our religions, at school, among friend groups, we were kind of quickly could see, what's accepted here and what's not accepted here. And so the ego helps us create this mask that we wear that is the outward showing of us to the world. Now, what the heart chakra does, if we can elevate to that place and we work deeply with the heart chakras, we begin to transcend that ego. This is where the mask starts to fall off. We start to understand that we are not our habits, and we're not our thoughts, and we're not our emotions. We're not any of this stuff here. We're something much greater. And that is the breaking away of the ego, transcending it, and then simply just allowing things to flow, just giving into the universe and just letting our path unfold before us. Really being able to see how everything in the universe is in relationship to one another as well, and that includes us. Now, collectively, unfortunately, we have I would say a pretty blocked collective heart chakra. So when I say collective, I mean of the human species. So there is, like I mentioned earlier, we chose to incarnate into this plane at this time. We came into a time when there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of heartbreak, there's a lot of trauma and tragedy. And so collectively, it makes sense that the heart chakra would be a bit imbalanced for the collective in general. And so what that means is that we ourselves, we can't help but be influenced by that because we're tapped into the collective, we're connected to it. So what that means is that we need to work harder to open up our own hearts, to really make sure that we've got that energy flowing optimally. We have to be able to begin to see those patterns about how interconnected we are, how everything that we do influences something outside of us, right? And when we balance that heart chakra, what we do is we find that connection. We realize without it just being words or thoughts, but we truly and deeply internalize that idea of connectedness, and we begin then to resonate with that unconditional love, and that includes us. So this really has to start within. It has to start with our own self-acceptance and our own self-love. And I know from talking to a lot of people in Body, Mind, Witchcraft, I know this is something that people struggle with. A lot of people struggle with this. How do we find that self-acceptance? How do we find that self-love? But if we can't find it, we really won't be able to transcend that, and we won't be able to have our energy rise as properly as we want to. And I know that a lot of people here want to open up their intuition, their spiritual gifts. And so this really is a pathway that we can do it. So it seems like we want to go and we want to do all the third eye stuff, and we want to do all the stuff with our intuition, right, and our magic. But it really does start here. It starts down here in the heart and actually below it as well. So making sure all the energy is flowing optimally. Now, the heart chakra can be blocked by grief. So we create blockages there when we grieve very deeply, especially if we carry the grief with us long term. And sometimes we don't even realize that we're carrying it with us. Now, oftentimes, the blocked heart chakra or a heart chakra with blockages will manifest in places in the body. We're going to talk about that in a bit. But one thing to think about is think about how you present yourself. So when you are standing or you're sitting in front of other people, kind of notice, because if you begin to bend forward like this, crossing the arms like this, it's a way of protecting ourselves, right? But what we're essentially doing is we're kind of folding in on the heart chakra. So we want to pay attention to the way we stand and the way we sit. And we want to make sure that we're opening this up so that we have that energy flowing more properly through it. So when that grief sits heavy on the heart, it's hard, though, for our hearts to be light and open. And so working with the heart chakra is a great way for us to work through our grief. And it's important that we not simply ignore our grief, because if we do that or we repress it, we eventually become numb. It becomes hard to feel things, right? And we may not even realize those unconscious effects of that. We may carry things from 20 years ago that we're not really even aware are there. So working through some of those things, really evaluating our lives, kind of looking at what do we still feel pained about. When you think back to a situation in the past, a relationship perhaps you've lost, a person that you've lost, a pet that you've lost, think about how much emotional charge that still carries. That pain will eventually dissipate, but for some people it just becomes repressed, and then we just go about our way, and we never really worked through it. So that is what the heart chakra can promise us as well, is kind of moving through that trauma, moving through that pain, getting to the other side, seeing the gifts that are there, never forgetting the thing that we've lost, but being able to reframe it in a different way so that it's not impacting our energy so much. Now, the heart chakra, like all the chakras, they develop at certain times in our life cycles. The heart chakra really begins to develop when we're about 4 to 7 years old. So if we look at those ages, if there's any major trauma that happened between 4 and 7, it's going to greatly impact the heart. I mean, trauma at any part of our life is going to impact it, but especially during those kind of formative years, 4 to 7. In those years, children are beginning to see past their self-centeredness. So anybody who has children or is around young children will know that when they are toddlers, there is a very self-centered aspect to them. And they begin to transcend that when they get a bit older, as they begin to realize that the world they're not as egocentric. The world isn't revolving completely around them. They become no longer just motivated by need. Those lower three chakras are all about our needs. When we get to the heart, it's not about our needs anymore. It's about the way we connect. Now, some adults, unfortunately, don't really make it through that transition, and they still are very need-driven when they are adults. And so that's something also to be aware of. If you feel that you're very need-driven, or you know someone who is, tends to be an indication that we want to work with the heart a little bit more deeply. Sometimes people go so far as to fall into those narcissistic patterns, ego gratification being at the top of their priorities. And so it's not wrong for us to put ourselves first, but if we're always ego driven, it's always about kind of gratifying our needs, then clearly we need to work a little bit more deeply at this level. So I want to talk a bit about how would we know, I've given you a little bit of idea of how you would know if the heart was a place to work with. But how would we know? So here are some ways to tell if your heart chakra is deficient, it's excessive, or it's balanced. Now, with deficient energy, what that means is that we don't have enough energy flowing through it. And with excessive, that's where we have too much energy flowing through it. What we're trying to do is we're trying to find space in the middle. And before I start going through these lists of the kind of checklist that you can look at, it is important for us to remember that we're usually not one or the other. We usually vacillate between them. It's kind of like a spectrum. So sometimes we may find that the heart is deficient. Perhaps we've been recently hurt and we kind of close off, we pull back, and that energy is going to be a bit deficient there in the heart in order to protect ourselves. Now, eventually the goal is that we heal and we open that back up, hopefully, right? But sometimes what will happen is when we're very deficient, we may move all the way to the excessive side as well. So just keep in mind, you may find when we go through these lists that you resonate with things on both of them. But at the end of the day, we're trying to find balance. So the deficient heart chakra is energy that feels very withdrawing. So if you feel that you're withdrawing from people, that can be an indication that there's some restrictive energy in the heart. Anybody who feels that they're kind of waiting for someone to rescue them, waiting for a relationship, waiting for kind of a knight in shining armor or a fairy godmother, that can also be a sign of a restrictive or deficient heart chakra. People who have deficient energy here will often remain stuck in past relationships. So they may find that it's hard to actually get out of a relationship they're in. They can't kind of figure out how to do that. Or they may be stuck in their minds in the past or with their hearts in the past, always kind of drawing back to these old relationships and these old hurts. They may find that they have difficulty moving on from the past, being able to forgive it. and forgive things that happen. And just to be clear too about forgiveness, it's one thing to think about when it comes to forgiveness. Forgiveness is an aspect of the heart chakra. It's important that we do find a way to forgive, but it's usually about forgiving ourselves. And when we do decide to kind of forgive the situation, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're forgiving the person. We're not saying that that person is okay in what they did that might have harmed us. But really, what I think forgiveness is about is letting go of the energy that keeps us kind of stuck and tied to that person or that situation. So when we're able to forgive that situation, we forgive ourselves for being in it. We kind of cut that tie and we release that energy. Now we're able to move more forward into the future without those connections. And what that does is actually returns some of our energy to us. So others who have restrictive energy of the heart chakra or deficient energy here may find that they really desire love, they really desire connection, but they're afraid to take risks. They're afraid to put themselves out there. So somebody who really wants to meet someone to be in a relationship with, but can't put their self on a dating website or can't go places where they're going to meet people. So in theory, they want the connection, but they're just not able to do it. So this would definitely be an indication to work with the heart chakra there. And then moving into more extremes, the people may find that they feel antisocial, withdrawn, very cold, critical or intolerant of themselves a lot of times, but also sometimes of others, may feel very lonely as well to have that kind of restrictive energy there, and may feel isolated, depressed, have that fear of intimacy, fear of relationships. Now, when we move into the excessive heart chakra, what you'll see is it looks very different. And so what will sometimes happen is we're in that restrictive state and we kind of get out of it and we move a little too far to the excessive side. So in the excessive side, people feel desperate in relationships. So there's this clinging to relationships, constant need for reassurance to reassure them that everything's going to be okay, that the relationship is okay. Usually they are compensating for past wounds, so that deficient energy kind of moves into that excessive side. Now, codependency is definitely here. So if you feel that you have codependency issues or people that you know have them, definitely want to work with the heart chakra, this more excessive side of it, and bring that more into balance. Oftentimes, like I said, that it'll kind of express itself as kind of clinging to other people. Also, can be jealousy. So having lots of jealousy in relationships, kind of always thinking the worst about what the other person is doing. Poor boundaries, not really being able to create boundaries of your own, but also perhaps overstepping other people's boundaries. And then also, an excessive heart chakra can look very like self-sacrifice. So really, kind of that martyr kind of aspect or archetype here. Now, before I get into the balance, so balance is what we don't want to do to bring it all back in. But if we have either restrictive or excessive energy of the heart, so essentially if we have an imbalance of the heart, what we may find is that we have suffered from traumas and abuses that have led to this. So if you have a history of some of these things I'm about to mention, then that also would be an indication that you would want to work with the heart. So rejection and abandonment, it's who hasn't had that, but there are some people who have had more of it. So if you feel that there's a history, especially in those early years of childhood, like rejection from parents, rejection from peers, the church, various different places that a person could get rejected from. So that is going to cause some trauma in the heart. Loss or shaming, so lots of early losses, lots of shaming coming from our caregivers, constant criticism in the home, divorce, death of loved ones, and like this can be any time in the life cycle, but especially in those formative years when the heart is really forming from 4 to 7 years old. A loveless or cold relationship when you were growing up, conditional love. So some parents, they distribute their love in conditional ways, and so children have to do certain things or be certain ways in order to receive it. So if you've had conditional love in your life, then that would definitely be a sign that we want to work with the heart. Sexual or physical abuse of any kind, and any kind of betrayal, it makes it hard for us to have that heart open. right? So if we've gone through any of these traumas, then what we want to do is work with the heart chakra. And I'm going to give some tips here in a bit about what you can do to work with the heart chakra. But you also might work with shadow work too, to let go of some of that, and to actually gain insight into where some of those traumas have led you, how they've led to those blockages of the heart. Now, besides so all those things I mentioned are either kind of emotional things or relational things, but we also can have physical manifestations of heart chakra issues. So, and here are some. And I love to talk about this because I really think that our body is like it's like a barometer. It tells us, not only does it tell us what is going on physically, but it tells us what's going on energetically as well. So really paying attention to your symptoms, it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't go to doctors or anything like that. It's never what I'm saying. But if you actually become very intimate with your own body and you can feel it, you see when things are happening that have changed, or you pay attention to kind of the physical manifestations you have, what you do effectively is you begin to see where you could treat that energetically. So, for example, one issue of the heart chakra is the heart. So, the heart and the lungs are connected to the heart chakra. So, if we have heart issues, if we have lung issues, it doesn't mean don't go to your doctor, but you could also work energetically with the heart chakra. And here, what you're doing is you're doing healing on two different levels, which means that you're going to accelerate that healing. So for me, I have asthma, and so I know I've always had heart chakra issues. So I know this is one that I work with very deeply. Um, there was a few years ago, or I guess maybe like a year and a half. No, it was only a year ago, I guess. I was having some really intense heart palpitations, and they had a heart monitor on me, and they were observing my heart and everything. And I knew during that time, at the end of it all, they said, "Oh, it's normal. There's nothing really going on, but we're glad we observed it." But what I felt too is that there was energetic things going on, and when I was actually able to address those parts of my energetic body and my emotional body, I did notice that those heart palpitations lessened and eventually went away. So, always nice for us to work in both aspects, okay? So, other areas that are connected to the heart are the thymus gland, okay? So, if you have thymus gland issues, then you can work with your heart chakra energy as well. Issues of the breasts, issues of the arms. So, arms all the way down into the wrists and the hands. So, another thing, I have a very bad wrist. It acts up every once in a while. And when it does, I know it's time. It's time to work on my heart. Shortness of breath, so that goes along with kind of the lung and the breathing issues. Any circulation problems, people who have really cold feet or cold hands, would be a good idea to work with the heart chakra. Asthma. The heart is also connected to the immune system. So if you have kind of chronic immune system issues, working with the heart can be beneficial. Tension behind your shoulder blades. So as we get up into this area, we begin to move into the throat chakra as well, which we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks. But the heart is also something you can work on, especially if you find that you kind of slump over, your posture is not really good. Being able to open up the shoulders can help. Pain in the chest, like I said. So all of that can indicate that you would benefit from working with your heart chakra energy. Okay, so what does the balanced heart chakra look like? Okay, so the balanced heart chakra, and before I do that, I can see that it gives me kind of a tally that people have left comments here, and I'm not seeing them, so I'm hoping I can find them here. Some days we just can't see them. Okay, there they are. Hello. I could see Melinda, Cindy, Jenny. Hi, everybody. Sometimes I just can't see those comments. Okay, there they are. Now I can see comments. So feel free to leave comments if you are here with me. There's a Q&A at the end, and you can leave questions, and I will answer all those. It does not have to be about the heart chakra necessarily. It could be anything. Okay, so what we are trying to do is, we are aware that our energy will be restrictive sometimes, and it will be excessive sometimes, and sometimes that's dependent on what's going on. If we've just gone through a breakup, how can we possibly expect the heart to be totally balanced, right? So we're probably going to go through some restrictive energy. Perhaps we'll slide into some excessive energy, but eventually we want to bring us back to balance. Now, in the balanced heart chakra, we have an open heart space. We are at peace with those around us. We're at peace with what's inside of us. We really find that balance within, right? We feel a good, deep connection between kind of that physical area that is representative of those three lower chakras, and then the more spiritual areas that are representative of the upper three. We find balance between giving and receiving. So if you notice that it's hard to receive things, this is also a very good, it's very good to work with the heart. Like if you have trouble taking in, I'm going to show you an exercise here at the end. I'm going to actually show you a couple of things you can do for the heart, but one of them is an exercise that's very much about kind of taking energy in. It helps to balance that. We also, when we're balanced in the heart, we're living in the present, so we're not all dwelling in the past. We're not so connected to the past hurts or anything, and we're not looking forward into the future and being anxious and nervous about that. We're strongly and safely and securely here in the present. We are compassionate and loving to ourselves too, so it can't be just everybody else. It has to be us too, or we definitely have blockages in the heart. And we're empathic, peaceful, altruistic, and above all, we find balance. So that is the promise of the heart, because remember, the heart is the bridge. It is the transition space between that material and that physical and the ethereal and spiritual. So when we balance the heart, it resonates with the unconditional love, and we find that affinity within all parts of ourselves. So it's not just some parts we like and others we hate and detest. It's that we find acceptance first, but eventually love for all parts of ourselves, and a balance within and a balance without. Mind, body, yin, yang, right? All of that balance. Work, play, giving, receiving, socializing, being alone. So really think about where you fall kind of in dichotomies like that, and we're trying to find the balance, those spaces in between. Now the heart is associated with the element of air, and it is very much connected to our breath. Our breath is life-giving, and so when we work with the heart chakra, we must work with our breath. I don't really think there's a way around it. So I think what's really important for us to think about, and it's a really important question for you to just ask yourself, is how well do you breathe? And off the top of our heads, most of us are going to say, fine, I breathe okay. But when we really pay attention to it, how well do we really breathe? Because here's the reality. A normal pair of lungs can fit 2 pints of air in them. But what happens is that the normal breath that a person takes is usually less than a pint. So what that means is that we're actually inhaling less than half of the energy that our lungs can hold. Now, this isn't just about oxygen that we need, that the body needs. It's not just about the physical. This is an energetic issue, because energy comes from breath. Breath in Ayurveda and in Vedic yogic traditions is called prana. Prana literally translates to life force. So that means every time that you inhale, you're taking in prana, you're taking in life force. There's other ways to get prana. You can get it from eating, from the foods we eat. It contains energy as well. We actually can get it from drawing it up from the earth. As witches, we know we can actually get it from other parts of the universe as well. But the first place we get it is through our breath. So we really want to think about that shallow breathing that most of us do habitually. We want to think about how that's impacting us, because we have the ability to consciously work on this, to take in more air, which means we're taking in more life force. So I know for myself, as I'm somebody who breathes really high up in the chest, and kind of think about when you're breathing, where are you breathing? Many of us breathe very high up in the chest. It's just out of habit. Now, if we're able to lower the breath and take deeper breaths, then we will be able to take in more air, which means we're taking in more prana. Now, the thing about it is that eventually, if you actually pay attention to this, you start to change those habits. And I'll tell you, from both ends, I can see this. So I'm somebody, like I said, habitually always breathing up very high up in the chest, have a lot of anxiety, right? A lot of worry at times. And so this has just become habit after decades of just living in this body. And so several years ago, when I kind of embarked on my second yoga teacher training, I really dove very deeply into working with breath. And I was doing breath work every night. And what I noticed is I started to get rid of that bad habit. I was just naturally breathing deeply without even thinking about it. But then life takes its toll and I start working more. I started this business, which takes up a lot of time. I love it, but it takes up a lot of time, and I'm still working my other job. And so I didn't have as much time for the breathwork practice. I'd get a little bit in here and there, but I didn't have all that time I was devoting to it. And you know what happened? Breathing starts to move up here, up into the chest. And so it really is something that we quickly can lose, but we also can quickly gain. So what I recommend is, if you notice that you're somebody, first of all, if you're somebody who needs to work with the heart chakra, which probably we all do, work on your breath. That would be the first thing that I would say. But you absolutely can change those habits, and you can actually change them pretty quickly just by working on the breath for 10 to 15 minutes a day. So one thing you can do is the healing square breath. If you followed me for a while, I know you've heard me talk about this probably, but it's always good to refresh it. And for those who are new, the healing square breath is a counted breath. So what you do is you inhale for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 4, and then you hold for a count of 4. And each of those sets of 4 counts is like one side of the square, which is why we call it the healing square breath. Very much connected to the heart. And if you do that breath for for about a minute to 2 minutes, you will really make a big difference in the way that you're breathing. Now, another thing that you can do is just other counted patterns. So one pattern that's very good, especially if you're somebody who's got a lot of anxiety, it's kind of hard to bring your energy down. You can breathe with a shorter inhale and a longer exhale. And so sometimes the count that people recommend is 4 in and 8 out, but the 8 out can be a little hard for people. So you can do 4 in and 6 out, or you can do 3 inhale and 6 exhale. So but the important thing here is that we just have a longer exhale. That's the only thing that's most important here. So the other thing that you can do, and then I'm going to talk about some correspondences as well. Actually, let me go on to the correspondences, and then I'm going to show you a little exercise you can do when I get into the heart chakra balancing practices. So the element, like I mentioned, is air. We witches, we love our correspondences. So you can use any of these to create an altar, to create spell work or little rituals for yourself as you're connecting to the heart chakra. The color is green, so anytime we bring in the color green into our ritual, we're bringing in the energy of the heart chakra. Sometimes people also say the color pink, which is why like a stone like ruby zoisite that has the green and that pinkish red in it is so great for balancing the heart chakra. The tarot suit is swords because of that connection to air. The planet is Venus, so you can work with the goddess Venus, or you can work with the planetary energy Venus in a ritual or spell work. The metal is copper, that is associated with the heart. Now, herbs that if you're somebody who really likes herbs, you can use, this is not an exhaustive list, but lavender, jasmine, these are very airy herbs, and so they're very good for the heart. Orris root, yarrow, marjoram, I really like for the heart chakra as well. As far as minerals go, anything that's green is going to be connected to the heart. So emerald, green tourmaline, jade, rose quartz because of that pink color, the rhodochrosite, and like I mentioned, ruby zoisite. But anything green and anything pink, rose quartz is a great one for the heart. Deities are usually separated into the Hindu pantheon. That's simply because the chakra system comes from India, and then other pantheons. So as far as the deities of the heart that come from the Hindu pantheon, Vishnu lives in the heart. Lakshmi is connected to the sacral chakra, but also to the heart chakra. And then we have Krishna, and we have Kama. Now, Kama is the god of love. So it's also a very good one for the heart chakra. Now, as far as other pantheons go, pretty much goddesses and gods that are connected either to the air element or to that idea of love. So we have Aphrodite and Freya, Pan, Eros, Isis is a great one. Kuan Yin is one of my favorites for the heart chakra. And in fact, in our Shadow Seekers membership, it was probably several months ago, but we worked with Kuan Yin when we were working with the heart chakra. So she's a great one. She's such a compassionate goddess. So especially if you're having trouble loving yourself, Kuan Yin is a great one to work with. Okay, so as far as that would be all of your correspondences if you want to create rituals or spells or anything like that. And then we have some attunement practices. So I've already mentioned those two breaths. You've got the healing square breath, and then you have the counted breath with a shorter inhale and the longer exhale. Now, other thing that you can do is work with your arms. So one of the exercises that I love, and this is actually was an exercise that was taught to me as a manifestation exercise, because it actually draws energy into your aura. So just know that if you're trying to kind of manifest something, you're having trouble manifesting it, you can try this practice and it's very good, but it's also incredible for your heart because what it does is it kind of works with that energy of taking in. So remember, I talked earlier about like we have to be able to give and receive. Sometimes that receiving part is hard for us. A lot of us are over givers. We're very nurturing and we tend to give more than we take in. Okay, so this exercise will help balance that energy. And so what you do is you put your arms out straight like this. And then you begin to just bring one hand into the heart. So like on the inhale, and then the other one on the exhale. So it's like, and I do it with my mouth closed, but if you have sinus issues, you can do it with your mouth open. But one in, one out. And you can do it as slow as you need to. And so what I recommend doing though is I recommend doing the exercise for if you can, for like a minute and a half, working up towards 3 minutes. What it does is it actually will strengthen your arms without doing very much. And you may feel them kind of burn in the beginning when you're first doing it, but over time your arms strengthen and then it becomes much easier. But not only that, but what it does is kind of balances that heart energy because what we're doing is we're pulling energy into the heart back and forth. So inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And like I said, it is a manifestation practice as well because you're drawing energy in. And so if you use it as a manifestation practice, you can actually keep your intention in your mind as you're doing the exercise. So that's one that I very much love. When it comes to any of the chakras, psychotherapy is always good if you feel that you, especially if you haven't had psychotherapy before or you're really going through a lot. During psychotherapy connected to the heart chakra, you can work through early relationships, emotional abuse and trauma. You can learn how to release your grief. You can find forgiveness, which again doesn't necessarily mean about saying that, it doesn't mean about saying that other people were okay, that what they did to you, but about kind of being able to sever that connection, kind of taking back our energy, forgiving ourselves, and just kind of releasing everything. And then you also could work through inner child work, or if you do feel you have codependency issues, you can work through that in psychotherapy as well. Now, as far as yoga goes, yoga is great for all the chakras. So if you are a yogi or you like doing yoga, anything that's opening up your chest is going to have to do with the heart. So like bringing the arms behind the back, interlacing the fingers, just pulling the chest forward. I like to imagine that there's a cord that's attached to my heart that's pulling it up to the heavens, and that lifts up your heart, right? And that immediately is going to get us some opening here. If you know these poses, cobra pose is very good, fish pose, camel pose, and then anything that works with the arms. Shadow work, great for all the chakras, but especially for the heart chakra because of the ability to work through the emotional body. And then having some kind of a daily gratitude practice can be very helpful as well because that is one space to, to work with that energy moving through our gratitude opens us up to other gifts, to receive other things. And remember, the heart is all about receiving. Another thing you can try is energetic or emotional freedom technique, or sometimes called emotive freedom technique. Some people call it energetic tapping or energy tapping. So it's a special way that you can reprogram negative thoughts through this, in limiting beliefs, through tapping. So if you've never heard of it, I highly encourage you to look it up. I'll probably do an episode on it eventually. I have something special planned for our Shadow Seekers membership when it comes to EFT, or emotional freedom technique, as well. And that is a good segue into our Q&A now. Okay, so if you are here with me live, feel free, if you can leave any comments that you have. I think I've got to see if there are more here. So if anybody has any questions or comments, now you can put them in the chat. You can put them anytime in, but you can put them in now. I'll be answering any of those. It's like, I'm not sure I'm seeing any though here. I see that Jenny said she has a blocked heart chakra and asthma too. Yeah. So yeah, anytime that we have that asthma, you would, whatever your treatments are for asthma, I know they gave me my inhaler and I've got a couple other things to do. But what you actually might find is some of the breath work, especially very, very deep breathing on one hand, and then very, very shallow breathing, like the breath of fire, which is just that really quick, like that breath, or a panting breath especially too. It's the same kind of movement, but you stick the tongue out and you pant like that, actually helped with my asthma. So it's, if you tried it and it made it worse, I wouldn't do it. But it's something about moving the energy through the lungs actually helped mine quite a bit. But it's very common for people who have heart chakra issues to have asthma or some kind of breathing issues. Okay, so anybody put questions and comments in here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's coming up too, because we have a lot of exciting things coming up that I'm going to share. So probably the most exciting thing, two things coming up. So one is that I'm doing a next week, instead of going live on here on Facebook, I'll be doing a Zoom class called Introduction to Shadow Work for Witches, Empaths, and Spiritually Minded People. So some of you may have taken this workshop before. It's a free workshop I offer several times a year, though I do teach it a little differently every single time. So if you've taken it before, you come join us and you might learn something different. Or sometimes when you hear the material a second or a third time, it hits you in a different way, and all of a sudden it, I don't know, you're able to embody it more, right? So that is coming up next Wednesday, the 22nd. And so if you would like to come with us live, you can look for a Zoom link for that. And if you're in our Body, Mind, Witchcraft Facebook group, you'll be able to get the Zoom link. There'll be many posts coming up that's going to have the Zoom link in there. You'll be able to get the Zoom link that way. And if you're on the mailing list for me, for Body, Mind, Witchcraft, you can also get the Zoom link that way. Now, we will have a replay of it afterwards, so it will be in the Body, Mind, Witchcraft group. I think it's going to be fed to the Body, Mind, Witchcraft Facebook page, and then afterwards we're going to put it on YouTube as well. So there's going to be many ways to watch the workshop, but if you want to come live, you'll need to get that Zoom link. So it's taking place the same time in 1 week, so November 22nd at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. It's about an hour and 15 minutes or so. There will be space for a Q&A at the end, and I'm going to basically teach you what shadow work is, what's the shadow, give you some shadow work techniques, and then give you some information about our membership, which is about to open up. So our Shadow Seekers membership is for people who want to take all this to the next level. So we work with shadow work and we work with the chakras and energy work. We're doing some great work in our membership. We have some great members. We'd love for you to join us. And we have a special Black Friday deal that is coming up that is going to, we're hoping, is going to get people off the fence who've been on the fence about joining us in the past, get them off the fence and get them at least into the membership to try it out. So just watch for that, because as soon as we do this workshop, that's going to kind of kick off our week of being open. And then I'm going to have another Q&A at some point, and some, I'll go live and offer more information about the membership. But you'll learn more about it as we go. But just looking forward to that workshop next week. I love getting live. I like doing these lives on here, but I love being on the Zoom with everybody and meeting new people and sharing shadow work and energy work with them. So look for information on that if you want to come live, get that Zoom link and join us. Also, if you feel that you are really interested in our Shadow Seekers membership, then and you know that you're not on our wait list yet, send me a message. You can email me at aislinlumina@bodymindwitchcraft.com, or you can always message under any videos and just let me know that you're interested, because we don't know. We anticipate that it could fill up faster than we think this time, and so we're going to offer spots to those on the wait list first to kind of ensure that those who are really interested have the chance to get in. So if you're interested in that, definitely let me know. And then the following week on 11/29, I'm going to be doing a special shadow work and energy work Q&A. So there's going to be a post places that's going to ask you for your number one question about shadow work and energy work. You can leave questions there, and I'm going to answer all of those in a special Q&A on shadow work and energy work. I'm also going to be sharing with you guys some of my favorite questions I've been asked over the past couple years when it comes to both topics. And then, like I said, our membership is going to be open from 11/24 to about 11/30, taking in our next round of members. And then I don't know when we'll be open up again. So definitely, if you're interested in it, you want to get in and join us. And then the following week, which I guess that would be like December 6th, I think, December 5th, then I'll be back talking about the chakras, and we're going to go, and we're moving up. We'll be talking about the throat chakra then. All right, so let me check here to see if we have any comments. Looks like we now do have more comments that I can't see. Okay, give me a second. I don't know why. Sometimes I can't see these. Yep, I don't want to leave without being able to answer things that people have, but I'm not seeing any of our comments here. Okay, there I can see them now. Okay. Okay. All right, so I said, I see Melinda. Melinda said, what is something you would suggest as a daily habit to do every day that adds magic to our day? That's a good question. So, one of the things that I really like is, you could go with kind of your natural answer is like do some kind of a breath work practice, or do the gratitude practice every morning, or light a candle. Like, one of the things I do every day is I light a candle for a bit every day, and I kind of have an intention that I set at the new moon, and then I burn my candle every single day, and that kind of adds the energy to my intention. So I love that because I feel it brings just kind of magic into every day. But one of the things I think is really fun is playing the synchronicity game, and it really actually strengthens your ability to kind of connect to the synchronicities outside of you. And as you start to notice more of them, you'll see more. Let me say that a little bit better. As you start to notice more, there will be more. It's kind of like a friend. So let's say you have a friend who you talk to a lot, okay, right? So you're talking to that friend a lot, and then maybe you stop talking to that friend, and then they don't, you stop talking to them, so they're not talking to you, right? So eventually nobody's talking to each other. It's kind of how the universe works, is that when the universe sees that we're actually paying attention and we're engaging in conversation with it, it wants to talk to us more. So in the synchronicity game, what you do is you kind of set an intention, and you can do this in your house, but it's actually really good if you do it kind of set out and go out into the world to do this. But you set the intention that you are going to pay attention to the first unusual thing that you see, or you hear, or you experience. And you can even set a question too. So let's say you have a question that you want an answer to, and you'll say, like, I'm gonna set out in the world. I'm gonna be very open and receptive, and I'm gonna pay attention to the first unusual thing I see, and I'm gonna take that as the answer to my question. I'll try to decipher what that means. And so when the universe starts to notice that you are engaging with it, it starts to engage with you more. So to me, that's always been a way to bring in just that little extra dose of magic. And not only that, it strengthens our intuition and and our connection to those synchronicities. So you could try that. And every day you could just kind of set that intention. I'm going to pay attention to the first unusual thing that I see that I feel is connected to my question, or just kind of where I am in my life right now. And then I see that Colleen said, would growing up in the church where witchcraft is considered evil be considered a trauma that could impact the heart chakra? Yeah, I feel that that could be a trauma that could impact multiple chakras, probably, but especially the heart. Because remember, the heart, and I think it would also impact the throat. Now, one thing I didn't mention is that any chakras that are next to each other in the body, they're actually intimately connected. So the heart is actually very connected to the throat chakra as well. They're kind of a unit right here. And so when we have something happen, so like a trauma or like a place where you are, maybe you're not accepted or you feel that you're not accepted, you can kind of just sense that energy. What it's going to do is it's going to actually force you to close down. So you're going to close down in the heart. Okay, so that's going to constrict the energy there already. And then you're also not really feeling free to express yourself. And so that begins to close down and constrict the energy of the throat. So yeah, I do think that some kind of a trauma like that, where you weren't accepted for anything, but but for witchcraft as well, could definitely be something that would impact your heart. But what we should say too is everybody's got things that have impacted their heart. So don't kind of feel like, oh, these are all these problems or all these things that are wrong with me. It's just a pathway to our healing. So like it should actually be like a good thing, because if we recognize, okay, well, there's trauma in my heart, well, now I have a pathway to heal it, right? As opposed to just having trauma. Now I have it. Now I know it's connected to my heart, and I know that there are things I can do: the breathing, the exercises, bring in the color green and candles, right? And some of those herbs and things. And now I have a way that I can work with it. Um, okay, let me see if there's any more questions. It's like I can see some of them, and then all of a sudden I can't see any. Why does this happen? Facebook. Okay, well, I hope that I answered them all. Okay, now I can see stuff. Okay. Yeah. And then I see Melinda loved Colleen's question, and she said, I wondered this several times, but hadn't thought to ask. Yeah, yeah, definitely. It will. I feel like, it can also kind of impact the solar plexus as well, since they're all kind of a unit together. Okay, so I am going to sign off now. If I somehow did miss a question because I'm not seeing everything, I'll go back later through the feed and I'll answer everything. If you're watching this in replay, feel free to also leave questions, because I do go back several times and I can answer anything that you've left. And if you liked what you heard in the video anywhere, just leave a thumbs up or a heart, and we just make sure we get it out to more people. And subscribe on YouTube, Body, Mind, Witchcraft. You won't miss the next episode, okay? All right, until next time, blessed be.